Hello and welcome to the Working Tools Masonic Podcast, where today will be part 2 of our interview with Most Worshipful Brother Barry Burch.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our opinions and thoughts are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions, either here on YouTube or on our Facebook page. We'd also appreciate a thumbs up and especially any comments on our videos.
Today on the Working Tools, we are interviewing Most Worshipful Brother Barry Burch, who is the past Grand Master of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons of British Columbia and the Yukon. And I'm Matt Appel. I'm a past district deputy down here in Washington, which also is a title befitting David Colbeth, our other host from Washington. And we also have Worshipful Brother Steven Chung, who's a past master from up in British Columbia. And today we will be discussing, it's sort of part 2 of Most Worshipful Brother Barry's We're All in This Together document, which will be, I'm sure, in the show notes yet again. Thanks again, David. Last week we talked about the 3 things that we felt like we could do as individuals to be better Freemasons, which is the first of the 3 questions at the end of the document here. And this evening we will be discussing 3 things that our lodge can do to better attract and retain and serve the membership of our lodges. So before we get into that, Most Worshipful Brother Barry, thank you again for coming out and being with us and having this discussion.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me on. In these challenging times that we have, and we're not able to meet face to face in a lodge, it's the traditional ways in which we operate obviously can't function at this particular point in time. And so it seems to me that this is a time for leaders of lodges and senior officers of lodges and brethren in lodges to think about, how can my lodge make things better, particularly in these circumstances? What can we do to keep the craft alive, engage our brethren, keep moving forward as Freemasons? How can the lodge do that in these times? And so, those are the 3 the 3 questions, the 3 responses that I'm interested in hearing from you brothers.
Yeah, I've said more than once, actually, I think I've said it on this show, that if we go back from this COVID crisis to lodge meetings, to the same lodge meetings that we had before, I'm going to be really disappointed in us that we could not come up with a way to use this break in activity to improve what it is we do. Yeah. We've got the downtime. Now we need to make use of it. I guess since I went last time, I can go first this time. If I've been sort of contemplating what the lodge can do. As secretary, I guess I see all the warts, so it's definitely interesting sometimes. But I guess my first thing is that what I was just talking about, I'd like to have better meetings. I know David is particularly enamored of the Board of General Purposes idea, and I am too on some level, where if we could have some kind of a business meeting, have the officers meeting, not that we're hiding things from the members or anything, but if we could have some sort of a meeting where the business gets done and out of the way, and that enables the meeting to be a time for fraternalism and for education, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction towards serving our members and retaining our members. I proposed just sort of talking around with the guys once or twice that when we form the Matthew J. Appel Lodge of Excellence, that we'll have in the bylaws, there'll be 2 meetings every quarter, and one meeting will be the business meeting, and we will do nothing but business. And if you want to come to that, great. If you want to vote on what wattage of light bulbs to buy and what color to paint the walls, and whatever. Great, come to those meetings. You're more than welcome. Discuss things. But if you're not that kind of guy who is excited by that, but you still want to see your brothers, the other meeting every quarter would be none of that. It would be all education and the festive board and the things that people say they want out of Masonry, not the business of Masonry. So
I think we still have time to submit a lodge petition for a new lodge. There was the two lodges merged or they were going to merge in my district here back when I was deputy, and I told them that it was traditional for the new lodge to take the name of the deputy for the new lodge, but they didn't bite. So it's if we could form NJA 333 Lodge, I'd be down there.
So yeah, I guess that's my first thing that I think we could do. Just have better meetings in general. To have a way to break out the business and the stuff which is important. It's the foundation that Masonry is built on. I had my education talk when we did the District 2 Lodge Leadership Retreat, and there's the roots that feed the tree. You got to have your dues, and you got to have your meetings, and you got to follow the bylaws, and you got to do this. But nobody's excited about the roots of the tree. They want the apple. They want the fruit that's coming off of it, and that's the education. That's the thing that gets people excited about the meetings.
They want the apple.
Exactly, the apple is the.
Yeah, we took that board of general purpose and put it just before our meetings. So it happens we book an hour, and it happens for just before our meetings, so that those guys can come to the still one night and do that, take care of the business outside of the lodge, and everybody's invited. Everybody gets noticed or notified, and so on. So it's not like they don't have the opportunity to come and participate, right? But that's where all the lengthy discussion happens.
And do you have a meal before that? So you have a meal, then general purposes, and then a meeting?
No, but that's the thing that I want to do in my lodge. Is try and figure out some way to have a meal on a regular basis. And I was talking with a couple of brothers the other day. We couldn't do it as an every meeting thing because we couldn't see how financially that would just make our dues through the roof, unless you had really good active stewards. And but I did commit to talking to other brethren I know that have meals at their lodges to see, how does it, what formats work, what layouts work, so that we could make our lodge a little more interesting, because we've already tried to build education in there, and so we've done a good job of that. But I think one of the ways that we can foster better fraternal aspect of our lodge is through having those meals beforehand. So even if they got done on a quarterly basis, but my mission now is to go out and gather that data and come back with the different suggestions on ways to make something like that work.
How about adding a social night only every month? That's what we did. We ended the fourth.
We have that.
You do already?
Yeah.
So yeah, just have it. That's your meal. That's your meal. If you don't have a meal at your meeting, just have your meal at your social night, and you're done.
So
bad idea.
So Stephen, the Board of General Purposes meeting, the outcomes come back to Open Lodge, and the board recommends this particular thing. Brethren vote in the usual sign of the order, and basically
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and that really does make a big difference.
It's like a consent. It's like a consent agenda, and
so Matt, that's a really good idea. Really good idea.
Yeah, it's very much a consent agenda at that point. Much like our budget is our bills. Everything's done in our budget, so paying our bills is automatic. Very much.
Matt, you write the resolution, Matt, and I'll be the second speaker at Grand Lodge next year.
Excellent.
What's your second one?
Well, my second and third are sort of related, but Our lodge, we actually just got involved with, so we had Byron Crager on not too long ago who talked about the Masonic Outreach Program to help lodges reach out to their widows and their brothers who you don't see all too often or ever. And our lodge has actually just started going down that road. And that's one of the things that I think we've been negligent in is especially our widows. I actually have our current widow tracking system, I'm ashamed to say for my lodge, is the sticky notes that I have on my computer screen here, which is shameful, honestly. It is not doing the service to the widows of our brothers that we said we would render. And so I think that keeping track of our older members, the members that we don't see too often for whatever reason, and our widows is definitely something that we need to do a better job of. And like I said, we've just started down this road. We found a guy who's going to be our champion of the program in our lodge. And I really want him to succeed. It's unfortunately a secretary. It's just one more thing that I just can't wrangle in the right direction. Than having somebody whose job that is, I think will help a lot in having just someone to say, hey, here it is, and having him run with it, because he's good at that sort of social thing, but more than I am. So
it's a great program. The Masons Care program is amazing.
It is. I was totally impressed with what they've done and their layout and format. It's incredible. Like I said, I wish we had that kind of thing going here, and who knows, if we end up losing the cancer card program, maybe we'll work towards something like that.
And
I'd be quite interested. Masons Care. Okay, I could.
It's part of Watch Masonic Charities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Byron, as Matt mentioned, Byron Crager is doing that. And actually, offline, I helped him record a video. He was considering making it into a video series that he could provide to lodges as a delivery, but he really prefers to do it in person because it's a totally different experience in person, where you can really pull on their heartstrings of the members of the lodge to try to get them to remember their obligations, as Matt said, and actually do what we said we're going to do.
That's pretty cool. And what was your third there, Matt?
Third one is kind of related, but we seem to get prospects that we get names and numbers or emails or whatever for, and then either we drop the ball or they disappear, and I don't know why, or something happens there. But we need to, as a lodge, improve our way of keeping track of prospects, our interaction with them. I'm not quite sure what it is that we lose so many men who express an interest, but we do. And maybe that's just part of the deal. Maybe you just, people sign up on a sheet and then they don't really intend to do it, and it's not a big deal, and it's not as big a deal as I think it is maybe. But it does seem we lose a lot. We have guys who express an interest, and then we don't somehow make them members.
I have spent a lot of time working on that. Being the guy who got put in charge of the 6-step program in our lodge, I kind of took that on as well, how are we going to keep track of these guys? Because, like you say, pieces of paper go missing all the time, and then you lose the guy's number. So what I did actually was I got them going and put them in as contacts, and created a group for lodge prospects and candidates and different phases through the way. And I moved them from one to the other as they progress. But at any time, like once a month, I make contact with our candidates in waiting. Through this COVID period, we've got 5 now sitting there waiting to join and
Nice.
chomping at the bit. And if I could do an apprentice degree tomorrow, they'd all be there. And but what I did is every month I call them. So I have it in my calendar, in my Google Calendar for the lodge, to follow up with the candidates, to follow up with prospects all the way through their progress. So that they don't get left behind and forgotten. And so really using the power of the Google Calendar and the contacts along with the Gmail for our lodge as more of a contact database for our processes has been very valuable. So highly suggest that to your lodge. But really, it takes one guy. You got to get one guy in charge of that process to follow these guys through membership. And then you need another guy who's in charge of mentorship at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a fancy new tool called Grandview, though, that allows for entry of inquirers and of petitioners. So you can move them through the steps inside Grandview, the membership database.
Yeah, I don't know if they just turned that on or if I just noticed it, but one or the other. It's a recent. I actually just started using that myself. We have a guy who.
That's and now, is that just for Washington State, or is that for?
It's used. The Grandview system is used by, gosh, like 15 or 17.
I think it's 30 now. It's a lot.
Oh, wow,
but yeah, it's
Grand Lodges in the U.S. and it's. I know California and some of the big ones. Texas, I think, uses it. So
California just came on this year, so we're expecting big additions, I wouldn't say changes, but enhancements.
But it's really cool. It's a Grand Lodge membership thing. So as secretary, I can track people's addresses and print out mailing labels and all that sort of stuff. But it also, each member can log on. So we had a guy move, and he could log on to his own account and say, "This is my new address," and put it in there. And that way, it's not the secretary losing some little piece of paper somewhere. It's all in there. And similarly, and going back to my widow's sticky note, there's actually a page in there for your spouses of your members. So you can, Bill's wife is Marie, and here's her info. And no, please don't contact her, or please do contact her, or whatever. It's
when you guys talked about this Grandview program before, and so I'm hoping I was killing enough time talking there while Barry had his head down. I'm hoping he was writing it down so he could follow up on that stuff, because he's the guy who can make that kind of stuff happen in our Grand Lodge.
It's only $1. It's $1 a member. It's relatively inexpensive.
Oh, that's cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I got to say, as Lodge Secretary, it is far and away better than I can't even remember the name of the last system we had. Was that the Glims, or I forget the name of it exactly? But it is really good. I like it a lot.
I think we should look into it, because I know that our Grand Lodge just sent our secretary a request for information to be built into a spreadsheet, and it was like, man, this is so 80s. And how can we get them in? We had this thing where our secretaries could go in and update a spreadsheet with the contact information and addresses of our membership, and Grand Lodge looks at that as our active membership list, and nobody's updated it in 4 years that I know of. And our new secretary, he just got told about it, so he's all excited to get it all updated, but we've all switched to Google now, so all our contacts for our lodge and everything are in our Google database, and he's looking at some spreadsheet going, right? So be really cool. I like the idea of that Grandview program.
Maybe we should interview those guys.
Yeah, that'd be good. Who do you know? Anybody? Can you make that connection?
Yeah, we could. Our grand secretary bugs him enough. I'm sure we could get Right Worshipful Clint to make a connection there.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
I have incriminating photos of him, by the way, so if he's hesitant, just remind him.
All right, so that was Matt's 3, eh? So I guess I'll go next, because I'm going counterclockwise in the video thing here. 3 things that my lodge needs to do to better support. I think one of the biggest things I can say is going back to an active phoning committee. That personal touch, I believe, has been lost ever since we started mailing our notices by email and eliminating the actual mailing of a proper notice. Like it's kind of like the Grand Lodge's EB. They now have it on EB, but we used to get it as a bulletin in our monthly notices. And I don't know, I from what I remember, a lot of guys were like myself. They really looked forward to getting that bulletin and reading it, a hard copy piece of paper. I'm not much of a book reader, but I know that those that are, they really have this thing about holding a book in their hand versus having a Kindle, right? And so reading our Grand Lodge EB is kind of cool, because now they can get 100 pages in it. It was 80 pages the last one, I think. So it made it really long. They can get lots of content, but it's really not the same. So I think that original communications, going back to a mailed out notice and going back to a phoning committee, is really good, because we've done a lot of other things. We've implemented education. We've implemented social nights. We've implemented a lot of things to make things more family interactive. So we've done a lot of those things, but I think, let's see, so that's going back to the phoning. I think the other thing is to change up our format again. I was talking about that dinner thing. That was number 2 on my list of changing the things we can do there. Number 3 was to find a way our lodge can be more active and visible in our community. And though it got canceled this year, our downtown association has a block party every year, usually in the summertime, except not this year, and where we can go down, open our door, and give out pancakes for breakfast, do a breakfast thing, get some notoriety. And we were planning that this year so that we could get involved in the community so they can go, oh, Masons, what are they? Or, bring them right in front of our hall. There's the symbol, there's here's a little pamphlet and everything else. And that was my third one, was to get a little more involved in the community that way.
Yeah, as you mentioned the pamphlet, that's one thing that we've in the past done several food booth events, and we have our sign out there that says King Solomon Lodge number 60, and our Masonic, whatever, we make good men better. I don't know what the banner says, but we're serving hamburgers at one event. We serve pulled pork sandwiches at another, and without every time, at least one person comes up and says, "Yeah, I'll have some of that king salmon." And I keep telling the guys, we need to have a sign that says Auburn Freemasons, not King Solomon Lodge, because they don't know what King Salmon and King Solomon and apparently the difference. But if we had Auburn Freemasons, and then second, as you mentioned, the pamphlet, I think every one of the baskets we send out should be a little third sheet that says, what are Freemasons about? Or that could be the tray liner to the thing, and they could spill their barbecue sauce on it. And when they look down, they go, oh, they could read about the Freemasons. And
well, we happen to be having a guy on our episode tonight that's connected to something that can get us. We just got this stuff at our last Grand Communications. What is a Freemason? And it's a 3 brochure thing that we were all given to memorize, so there was different rebuttals in there and different things. And I think he could probably get you a copy of that.
It doesn't. Speaking for Freemasonry. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
And it doesn't have to be a huge, dysentery. Dysentery. Well,
do not give out dysentery with your food. I have against that.
Yeah, listen,
dissertation.
It's interesting. So I'm sort of getting pooped out now. So
it is almost the end of 2020. The dissertation doesn't have to be a big dissertation on Masonry. Just a little, even three points, like as Barry's doing. 3 points on Masonry, and just something simple to jog their mind and think about what Masonry is. And
were you involved in getting that out to us, Barry? I know that was just in the past year.
I was. Yep.
Yeah.
It was actually was a program that started in the Grand Lodge of New Zealand. Was adapted in a few places, including Grand Lodge of Oregon, and so we communicated with Oregon and New Zealand and asked if we could adapt it for our use, and of course they agreed. So the idea was to have this to each brother had a copy of this, because it basically goes over the problem of how much can I tell somebody, can I encourage them? How do we go about doing it? It answers all of those questions, and then it has the kind of plain language responses to the typical kinds of things that most people are going to say. Yeah, but I've heard that. Well, as a matter of fact, and there's the answer. So it's plain language, really simple, direct to the point. But your comment, David, about Auburn Freemasons, I think is a really good one. So, for example, my mother lodge, Duke of Connaught Freemasons. What does that communicate to somebody? Who are they? Like, are these Are these all expatriate Englishmen? I mean, are they aristocracy? I mean, what is this? So trying to communicate in a generic sense your existence, and ideally in a context where people can literally see what you're doing. We're here serving the community. We're serving. We're making. The proceeds from this are going to this particular charity. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. That's what Freemasons are all about. So, yeah. That is a great contribution that a lodge can make. Certainly, raising their profile.
Yeah, if you can email a digital copy of that to the podcast Gmail, that would be great. Then the guys can get their hands on it.
I'll do that.
I will say I feel like we should do maybe 3 podcasts someday on. I'll put it on our list of future topics.
Yeah.
Raising the lodge's profile in the community, and well, A, is that what we ought to be doing, and 2, how to do it if it is. So
yeah, I think there should be some strong opinions. Some guys think that that's not our part. That the Masonry isn't a community organization; it's a fraternity. And there's others that think we need to be in the community, and that's kind of where we came from. If you look at 100 years ago, 150 years ago, the lodge was the community, and so, but it was different. It wasn't that the lodge was trying to be in the community; it was the community. 100 years ago. But
anyway, like I said, that'll be 3 episodes that we'll do some other time, because if we start talking about that now, we're never going to finish in time.
That's right. We got to make time for David to answer his question.
Well, mine are pretty cerebral. I appreciate that Steve and Matt had more concrete answers. Mine are cerebral. So I could say that we could wrap up with this, and then we're getting pretty close to the end, and then we have a third question. We could leave that open to our listeners to think about the third question. I'll leave Matt to figure out how to wrap that conversation if we're not going to have a third show. But so my 3 things that my lodge needs to do to better able support and retain members, in my opinion, and these are all the same: listen, deliver, and support. Listen to what the members want and need, deliver what the members want and need, and then support them in their wants and needs. So it's kind of like the previous one: inquiring, learning, and teaching for what I can do to be better. What the lodge, and I guess it depends on too, are you talking about the lodge, the members of the lodge, or lodge officers? But in general, I think that you need to find out what the members want. And I think that's the culture of the lodge. Each lodge is a little bit different in their own culture. And so you need to find out what that membership wants. And then once you've done that, we'll deliver it.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic. And then once you're being delivered, continue to support that and grow it and develop it. And it comes through long range planning. It comes through collaboration. It comes through all kinds of different areas. But listening, I think, is, again, just like the inquiring. You inquire. I didn't put in listen, what I can do to be a better Freemason, but as part of inquiring, you want to listen after you inquire. As I was telling my daughter the other day, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You want to listen, and then you can talk about it. Although I do a lot of talking. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty obvious answer. Leadership of the lodge really needs to attend to the wants and needs of the brethren. I was the Grand Master at one point in time. My big thing was to listen to the brethren, to find out what the brethren wanted. But I started that before I became Grand Master. Grand Lodge started to do those sorts of things. And, surveying the brethren is never a bad idea. Everybody that cares enough about the craft has an opinion, and they want to communicate it. You give them opportunities. The data that you get, that you receive on this is really useful. And then, so you ask brethren what they're looking for. You get the results. You feed the results back. Okay, brother, here's what you said. All right, now, step 2. How are we going to make this happen? Build the plan to make it happen. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling circle of Masonic progress.
And I've said, just to echo something that you just said, Most Worshipful, and that David said, that I often, one of the other things I say a lot is that my Masonry and your Masonry aren't necessarily the same thing, and that's okay. Just because I'm interested in reading books about initiatic spirituality or whatever, doesn't mean that you have to be. If your Masonry is coming and seeing those guys and being great friends with them, great. There's no, if your lodge fills that aspect of your life and my lodge fills this aspect of my life, I think I said my twice, but that's besides the point, that, that's a good thing and that's a fine thing. And those lodges should do that well and go forth and do it,
Yeah, most definitely. I was having a conversation with a brother from another area the other day, and he was saying, how he's not feeling this way, and he's comparing lodges. And I said, every lodge is different and unique in their own way. And if you're finding that you're not getting what you're looking for in your lodge, just go visiting. Go visit more, right? And if you find you fit in somewhere else, you're always able to affiliate. That's the beautiful thing about our fraternity, And he never thought about spending his time going visiting other lodges instead of continually going where he wasn't happy.
And on that unhappy note, we are unfortunately coming to the end of our discussion about what our lodges can do to better serve our members. But before we go, I actually have a completely unrelated question for you, Most Worshipful Sir. Is that over your right shoulder, is that a Juan Sepulveda print that you have there?
It is.
I've been thinking about getting myself one of those, and I haven't yet pulled the trigger, but I'm...
Oh, it's absolutely glorious. Just a minute.
At least he's wearing pants.
Oh, wow.
That is cool.
Yeah, this was a gift. I went to Aviation Lodge. This a year or so ago. I went to Aviation Lodge at their request. They asked me to do a surprise visit. So I went and was speaking on another topic that I frequently comment. Anyway, so this is what they gave me for surprising them.
Wow.
I mean, that was very, very kind of them. And
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his Juan Sepulveda, for those who don't know, he does the Winding Stairs podcast, and he's also on the Masonic Roundtable. But he has some beautiful artwork, and like I say, every once in a while I wander through his website and think, I should get one of these, and then I don't. But someday I will.
Yes. No, it's lovely, very inspiring.
So on that note, thank you again, Most Worshipful Sir, for coming out and talking with us. I think we're gonna do as David suggested, and we talked about the 3 things we can do as individuals and 3 things our lodges can do, and we'll put on another future date. I think we'll record about 3 things that Grand Lodge can do to help its membership, which the lodges and the people who are members there. We don't want to put the past Grand Master on the spot right off the bat. So we'll discuss those 3 things. I'm sure we can all think of something, and we will discuss that at a future date. So again, on behalf of David and Steve and myself, Most Worshipful Barry, thank you very much for coming out this evening and talking to us.
Thank you, my brothers. Always a pleasure and an honor to be in your company. And thanks for keeping the Working Podcast going. It's fulfilling an important role, particularly in these times.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you all for listening. Goodbye.